Let's look now at some disturbing data from Stats SA. These are 2024 birth numbers that paint a grim picture for girls living in South Africa. A total of 98,351 births were by mothers, and I use that word mothers, aged 19 years and younger. Of those, 2,103 children were born to mothers, or children in fact, between the ages of 10 and 14. The worst figures are from KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. Let's speak further about this with activist and Wise for Africa Director Brenda Madumise. Good to have you on the SABC as always, ma'am. So even in framing the conversation, you don't even know how or which words to use, right? Because ultimately, these are children who have become mothers. It's alarming that more than 2,000 of them were themselves in the 10 to 14 age bracket. What do you glean from these disturbing figures?
So, Temekile, these stats have been with us for a good 5 years or so, that we have been seeing a trend of young children between 10 and 15 falling pregnant, right? And once a child, a 10-year-old, falls pregnant and we establish that the person responsible for making that young child pregnant is someone who's older than 16 years old, that's statutory rape. So we don't have to have the conversation. The parents should be aware that that is statutory rape, and it has to be, one, reported to the police so that there is a criminal investigation. It's not even an investigation that we're going to be doing, because you have now established that you have had, even if it's consensual, between that 10-year-old and a 17-year-old or 18-year-old, that's statutory rape, right? So we have not armed parents, we have not armed communities, we have not armed almost everyone with the understanding of what constitutes statutory rape, right? And what needs to be done once a 10-year-old, 11-year-old falls pregnant, right? So there is a criminal side of it, but also the civil side, because remember, once this 10-year-old is pregnant and a child is born, there is going to be an expectation that this child must be looked after. And in most instances, I mean, we have had the experience, and we have been in contact with some of these children who fell pregnant at the age of 12, 13, and their parents the parents stepped in to assist them to bring up this child, right? But then they rely on the state through the child grant to be able to look after the child. So the state is then forced to step in and ensure that the young child born is taken care of. So we owe it to ourselves, all of us as Africans, to ensure that we rid ourselves of this challenge that we have of young children becoming pregnant. So we need to talk to young boys, we need to talk to young men, we need to talk to young girls, we need to talk to children, we need to talk to parents, we need to talk to communities at large, so they understand that this should not be happening in the first place. And I think, for me, what is a travesty is that we're already at the stage of having to talk about the pregnancy having happened, that right. This child at 10 has had sex, and now there is a child born out of this interaction, and the state and everyone else has to come to the party to make sure that the born child, the young baby that is born out of this, is taken care of.
And do you think an inquiry such as the one that is currently being conducted by portfolio committees in Parliament precisely on the issue of statutory rape could be a game changer here? It could shift the needle in especially bringing about accountability and justice for children who are victims of sexual violence.
Yeah, we should. I think we shy away from confronting gendered violence the way we're supposed to confront it, right? We hide behind many things. We normalize it, we minimize it, we trivialize it, and we excuse it, right? So I think my preference would have been that with this national classification of gender-based violence as classified as a national disaster, that you're going to look in total in almost every single gender-based violence manifestation, whether it's sexual violence, sexual assault, rape, domestic violence, both physical, emotional, financial, intimidation, bullying, that you're going to look at it and start to find interventions that are appropriate for each and every transgression. And I think as a country, we can't be sitting idly by and be comfortable with statistics such as the ones that you have mentioned and before, where you have over 2,000, 5,000 children, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds falling pregnant. And we think it's okay as a country, as a nation, to just continue to accept it and think that it's something that we can look the other way and pretend that is not happening. We have to be outraged and enraged as a nation.
Let me ask you then about the role that underreporting plays, because it's one thing to go on community drives and get people to look out for signs of abuse, for example, in children. But when you consider how sexual violence, even when it's targeted at children, plays out, adults often are the barrier. The veil of secrecy is one that they pull in some of these cases, and that then plays out in the levels of underreporting.
Absolutely. I mean, as a parent, when your 10-year-old comes home and you discover that you're pregnant, so it requires that you as a parent be the first one to act and do something about it, right? You don't leave it to a social worker or anyone else. It's a responsibility that you know as a parent that child should not have been violated at all, right? Including the boy of 17 or 18 or sometimes older, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old should have known better to engage in sex with a 10-year-old and to know that that should not have been done in the first place. So it requires all of us to be fully aware of the do's and don'ts, and when you have done and gone beyond and crossed the line, that there are consequences. And what are those consequences? So we have not done the consequence, by the way, with a lot of young children having been violated sexually. We have not held those who are responsible to account for all of that. And so they've been left off the hook for the longest of time.
Advocate Brenda Madumise, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the SABC this evening, activist and director at Wise for Africa.